Welcome to the Simply Wild podcast. I'm your host, Sadie Jane, and we are diving back into Q&As because it is retreat month. It is retreat month. And I actually wasn't going to do a podcast this week because I'm heading down to Southern Utah to host 40 people for Simply Wild Mendocina. But we have some time. We're making some time, aren't we, Jeff?
Yes.
Yes, we're making some time.
We are here.
And we're going to finish up the Q&A that we started. But before I do that, I love retreat month. You know, it's funny because I told myself, I've been hosting retreats for many, many years, like since 20 something, 15, beyond. Doing yoga at retreats, speaking at retreats, hosting events, then obviously hosting my own retreats. And there are just some times when I don't know if it's that I schedule poorly or that things happen, but I specifically during COVID, I had to push back some Simply Wild backpacking. So I had one like back to pack. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And I told myself I'd never do that again. And then the next year I did backpacking or Mendocina and then backpacking. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that either. And then Costa Rica came up because I've been wanting to host a really empowering feminine embodiment retreat. So I was actually talking to Steph yesterday. She's the videographer, photographer on most of my retreats. She comes and films new content when I have new retreats. And I was just talking to her about how most of my retreats hold a lot of masculinity. So there's a lot of like moving through things. There's a lot of not just structure, but we're hiking, we're sitting in medicine, and of course there's flow in there too. But what I'm really excited about for Costa Rica, the elemental embodiment, is that it's a lot of feminine flow. We get to go and receive, and through flow and pleasure, healing also can happen, but also awakening to our gifts and really giving back to ourselves. So really excited about Mendocina and the people that have said yes, and the facilitators and the space. It feels like when we go there, it feels like going back home. There's just no better place, I feel like, to sit in ceremony because the space is just absolutely immaculate. And then in 3 weeks, I guess 4 weeks at the end of May, we are going back to Costa Rica with women, 20 to 30 women who say yes to go through the elements every day. We're going to do cacao ceremony, ecstatic dance. We have this incredible beach mandala that will be made for us. So we get to go through as if like a labyrinth to really lock in our prayers. We're going to go through every single element every day, which will be really, really amazing. So we get to get into our bodies, get into our minds, into our souls, into our wombs. And I've been wanting to encapsulate a really deep feminine goddess like retreat for so many years. And I've just been so busy with my other retreats. So I'm like, I don't know if I have the time, but I'm just going to do it. And it just happened to be, we actually booked this 9 months ago, and they were already booked out for the perfect dates. So I'm like, okay, well, let's just take the most, the one that we can get the soonest, because I wanted to do it quickly. And the soonest was the end of May, which if you have children, that's literally the worst time because kids are getting out of school, there's graduations. But we were like, no, this feels right. Let's just do it. So we actually went to a trip where we went to Costa Rica, looked at the whole retreat center because we rented it even before knowing what it was.
Yeah, because we had found it just looking online, on their website and doing some research and talking to different places down there. And so we had never seen it, hadn't even talked to anyone who had used the space. And so going there, was that last week? Going there was the first time that we got to see it. And I will honestly say I was blown away. Yeah. It was one of those moments where they just over delivered every turn. You just be like, oh my goodness, you guys are doing this. You're giving me this. It was incredible. Just the service was exceptional. The space was exceptional.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to go back.
Yeah. Jeff's like, I'm not impressed often, but I was impressed there. Yeah. I don't know if that's a manifestor thing, but I was too. I was absolutely blown away. And so, it's just going to be so nice to go back. And actually, while we were there, we locked in 2 more spots, but not until 2026 and 2027. But rest assured, they're at the end of January, which is prime time. So I was talking to the owner and I was like, listen, these are the spots that I want. And we were able to make a contract for those. So I'm not going to be doing this retreat again until 2026. So if you want a chance to come and sit in your feminine and really embody yourself in the truest expression and come home to yourself in that unique medicine of you, I'd love to have you in Costa Rica. Yeah, it'll be amazing.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. So before Costa Rica, before Medicina, we're going to drop in as many podcasts as we can while also navigating this time. You know what's funny about hosting a podcast or even starting one? I'm like, when does this season end? Do I have seasons? Do I not? Is this a year-long thing?
It's your podcast, so you get to do whatever you
I
want.
mean, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know, but I love that there's so many DMs every week that are like, "Oh my gosh, Fridays. I'm so excited for Fridays. This is when I do my errands, I do my morning walks." And so I'm almost like, "Oh my gosh, I have to keep going."
Yeah.
Cuz I'm not a huge podcast listener. I'm going to be completely honest.
The podcast that I listen to that I love is the ones where they're dropping episodes at least every week,
Yeah.
or sometimes some of them will do multiples a week. And I
Mm,
love that because then I can just absorb it. Because
yeah.
once I get rolling with one episode with that podcast, I want to keep going, keep going. And then sometimes
Interesting.
they like run out. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh, now I got to sit and wait.
Yeah. If this became my full-time gig, I would be like totally down. I don't know. I was really having like high hopes for it until I interviewed Kinsey, and then I was like, wow, I can't even I can't even keep us on track. It ended up being an incredible episode, but I love that, as especially as an ego projector, I can really get in to the other when I'm interviewing and like open them up to different places and things, which is another reason why I wanted to do the podcast, and also a place for me as my open throat center to just be able to express how I wanted to. But yeah, I definitely want to keep it going, and I don't see any reason not to other than the other things I'm doing for my business. So just crossing my fingers we can drop it all in. Jeff's amazing. He edits all the podcast. He's just
I love it. It's fun. I love podcasts. Um,
he does.
I
He
listen to them all the time.
yes.
And so then it's fun to be able to edit a podcast,
Yeah.
to be able to have that, like that tied to it.
Yeah. I know you're the best of the back end stuff. So I guess stay tuned, and
We're
we're
just
gonna
going to keep going.
we're gonna I guess we're gonna just keep going. And I do have some, I don't have like a schedule of guests. I just kind of tune into who I want on. And I have, of course, so many dream guests, but um, yeah, we'll just keep going and see what comes through. And thanks for listening every week. And I know that a lot of this is based off of what you guys feel, what you guys share with me, what I'm feeling from my community, what I'm feeling happening, in that atmosphere and around us energetically. And it's a beautiful place for us just to come together and remember our wild and consume content that feels really good rather than not great.
Yeah, totally.
So along those lines, um, okay, so I'm going to go through, I think I deleted the other ones that we did, the Q&A. So we'll just start. And then if any of these are the same, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a really good one. One thing you wish people understood about you was a question.
Are you wanting me to answer that
I
right now?
mean, you go ahead if you have the answer. I don't know if I know it yet because I have not, for the record, I have not read these before. So we're just going to go for it.
Okay, so one thing I wish people understood about me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think the biggest thing for me is just, especially now knowing human design, is that I'm a manifester. Because some
Mm,
people will see me, or I don't know, kind of question. I feel like some people maybe question why I am the way that I am, and it's because I'm down to the roots of it. I'm a manifester, and so with that, when I say that I'm a manifester in human design, it means that I'm plowing the way. I'm doing things that are like my passions, things that I want to do, but I'm also like the trailblazer in some ways, or I'm the leader. And it was always hard for me, for the longest time before I knew about human design, because I would naturally want to take the lead on things.
yeah.
And I would always feel bad for doing that, because then I think, oh, people are annoyed, or
Mm-hmm.
people like maybe yeah, people are annoyed with the whole process of me taking the lead. But once I understood it, and I realized that that was my power,
Mm-hmm.
was being the person to take charge and take the lead on things. And so that aspect I love. It reminds me of when we were in Costa Rica. Do you remember when we were sitting at dinners every
Yes,
single night?
you have to share that.
So when we were in Costa Rica, it was funny. I had noticed this like 2 years ago. I went to a retreat, and so I'll back up.
Yeah.
I went to a retreat like 2 years ago, and at that retreat, it was all men, and I noticed that nobody was really coming to me and asking, "Oh, tell me about yourself. Tell me your life. Where are you from? What are you interested in?" Like I really didn't get that. Whereas like I was going to all the other guys asking them those questions. And then I kind of felt like it was almost like I felt like I was repelling people away from me. And then once I like understood human design and realized that I have a repelling aura as a
Mm-hmm.
manifester, I started noticing it in different situations, different places around people. So we go to Costa Rica and we're there for every meal we would all sit down at this long table of there was probably what like 30 of us or more.
Yeah.
And I noticed that at the meals there'd always be like this like space of where there'd be no people at the table and there was always around me.
Literally no one sat by you.
I noticed that I would always have an empty seat across from me. I don't know if I'm just an annoying person or what, but I just
Not at all.
I just pointed it out to Sadie. I said, "Watch, like nobody sits in front of me, and it's because my repelling
We
aura."
made a joke about it. He was like, just watch, just watch. And we would like be the first ones at the table sometimes.
Yeah, either first ones or even towards the end, and every single time
Yeah.
it was always just basically me and Sadie. But yeah, as far as what I wish people had understood about me, it'd be
Yeah. I think that
that.
we've touched on this before. I think that you do get misunderstood because you are very, very true to your aura. And so I don't know how you do it. I actually need to look at your design again and look at it, but you don't people please. You like almost like can't. I don't know if all manifestors are like that. If you're a manifester and you like have blazed the trail of not having that conditioning, let me know because I'd be so curious. But like I notice with social cues like that, or like even social etiquette, or when we're around people, I'm like, please go say hello. Please interact. Like, okay, are you going to go sit down with those people? Like, I still am very conditioned that way. And it's just me and maybe my social awareness, but ultimately it's obviously my people pleasing conditioning. But you don't have that. And so, but it's not from a rude place. You just don't. I don't know how else to explain
I
it.
don't know how to explain it either.
Cause I'm like, babe, it's not hard. He's like, well, when I do
It's
it,
not that I don't want to be nice to people or that I'm a
yeah,
mean person.
of
It's
course.
just sometimes I don't want to talk or either talk to a specific person or I it's
Or you don't want to,
really hard to explain, but
yeah, I know.
yeah.
And even that sounds kind of like you're a dick. Even though you're not, you're literally, what's interesting is once you get into his aura, even though it's repelling, I can still pierce the aura if I really try hard. But I mean, being with you for 15 years, you're really gentle and innocent and kind. And so I think that's a great thing to say, like one thing people understood about you. And I think that that's genuinely a social boundaries thing. Like, why are we having to force conversations anyway? And if we're having to force conversations, why are we interacting with people anyway? And of course, there's networking and there's moments. And in those moments, you're really good, right? Like when you choose to be. But then it's so nice to be with and interact with people when you don't have to be forced. We just had a huge Medicina dinner for my facilitators last night at our house. And Jeff made salmon and I made roasted veggies and everyone brought a salad and all their kids. And it was so fun to just like sit around and talk and laugh and prepare. And Jeff like was doing his own thing. He'd like be in the conversation, then he wouldn't be, and then he would. And it wasn't from like a malice thing. And what's fun is like our group of people are like a real soul family. They know him now where they don't take it offensively, which is nice.
It is nice.
Yeah. I
Okay, so what
think,
about you?
yeah, one thing I wish people understood about me was this is so boring. This is so boring, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is the first thing that came to my mind is that my intentions are always really pure.
That's a really good one.
Is it?
Yes.
Like from me, you mean?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Um I would think now I'm speaking in general, but I would think from an outsider, they may look at you and look at your post or look at just, I don't know, just the things that you're doing and think that it's just so out there, just so different and weird, for lack of a better word. I mean, there's just things that you do that your intention to it is so pure,
Yeah.
but yet it is,
Really
it's
misunderstood
it's
sometimes.
really
Which
misunderstood.
what are you talking about specifically that's weird? I want an example from the manifestor himself.
I'm trying to think of
Because Jeff and I could not be more opposite. So it's like perfect that it's him
you.
that's
I would say maybe some of your posts or videos where you come across just like very woo in regards to like
mm,
maybe like when it's around like the time of your moon and the
mm,
traditions that you do with that.
yeah.
Or even just, I don't know. Yeah, I would say that would probably be the biggest thing.
I was gonna say like this ties perfectly into our conversation last week with Kinsey. I was like, oh, like when I'm dancing on there and like when I'm
Yes.
and I totally or when I'm like playing my flute or
Yes.
this is why I don't share my music. Because I'm like, who am I? This like you know, mommy blogger turned influencer, turned fitness influencer, turned spiritual coach, blah, 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 blah. Like, and now all of a sudden she thinks she can sing, which when in all actuality, I've been singing my whole life and
You
I sing
guys
in
do need to
ceremonies.
hear Sadie sing. It is
I
magical.
do sing in my smaller containers. It's just a matter of time before. But going back to the question,
Well, it is interesting for me because I live with you. I've basically grown up with you. I
yeah,
mean, we've been together for 15 years.
yeah,
And so I've been able to witness the changes. Whereas someone coming into this who's never met you, they could easily judge it
totally.
and be like, oh my goodness, who is this
Yeah,
person?
yeah,
And, but yet when you get to know Sadie and hear her music and hear her words and hear her wisdom and the things that she knows about and the work that she's put in to be able
mm-hmm,
to educate herself on
mm-hmm.
this stuff, it like really makes you appreciate just your intention behind all
Mm,
of it.
that's so nice. Thanks, baby.
You're
I did
welcome.
not tell him to say any of that. One thing that we can appreciate about a manifester is their throat center is completely defined. So when they say things, they like literally mean it. They really, really mean it. But yeah, the intention, I think it's misconstrued because people get put in labels and there's so much manipulation out there and or there's people that are just bitter that people are out there showing themselves or influencers get a bad rap. Now I don't really consider myself an influencer now, but for many many years I was, and because of that journey I am able now to be an entrepreneur and primarily promote just my offerings. And you're right. The journey has been so long. And I try so hard to share the vulnerability of that and really be authentic in myself. But even in the authenticity, people just assume that I'm faking it or that I'm doing it for show, or I don't even know what they're thinking. But what's funny is,
I
this
think those
was,
are all good assumptions. I
yeah,
mean, it all fits. It's all accurate.
yeah.
It is interesting how people get so bothered by it. But I think the reason why most people get bothered by it is deep down they wish that they could be that open with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Yeah, I know that a lot of it is that I'm a mirror, and especially being a projector. Like my life isn't even about me; it's about the other. And I literally, as a projector, project that onto people. Like this is what my journey has been in my life, and now here we are, and I'm like showing where I've come. But even the intentions of plant medicine, my parenting, like there's definitely the shadow of being authentic online, and I there's just assumptions that are made, and I can't fix that from anybody, but I do wish that people understood just how pure my intentions are, really with literally everything I do, from the prices that I put my offerings at to every single post. Like I have to live at this point of my life with what I've been through and what I've really fought to become and live in this very transparent, integral life. There's no other choice to me, but for me, but to be in deep intention with everything. That doesn't mean I'm perfect, of course, but even within the imperfection of like what I'm sharing, there's intention behind that. So I do wish that people understood that more, but ultimately, like you said, it's not even about me, it's about them. So,
Yeah, it's for their own process to go through.
and, another piece of that is that we are not for everybody. And so, if, and especially as a projector, like um, there's so much reflection of the other person. And so, if that is, I actually, one of my very first guides in human design, his name's Phil. He's great. He, one of the very first things that stood out to me when he was talking to me about a projector, he's like, you'll walk into a room and immediately people won't like you just because of your aura, because it's so penetrating that people feel like really,
Kind of like violated.
very violated. And I know that that happens. And, but truthfully, the intention is always to help you find yourself and to help you find the freedom of how good it feels to just live authentically and free and create. Like, what a gift that we have the internet and little pieces of it ourselves to just express that way.
Love it.
Love it. Um, okay. The next one is, I love this one. What was your first big business investment? Were you nervous? I'll answer it first and then I want to hear what you have to say because I bet we have different.
Yeah.
I would say I mean, I'm assuming she means financially, but for me, the biggest investment I made was quitting my nursing job.
Mm.
Like, that was such a huge investment because it was an investment in time, because I was spending so much time and energy working full-time nights in a very, very high stress, very traumatic job, being the labor and delivery charge nurse even, and then coming home with babies. I had extremely um, difficult, time consuming church calling. It was just, there was just so much going on. I had postpartum depression. So when I decided to quit, it wasn't because I had like all of these sponsored posts coming in, and it wasn't because Jeff's job got a raise. Like, we were barely making it. And I just knew that if I could give away something, like take something off of my plate, that I could focus my energy on something else. And a lot of times we think of investments in our business of like the investment of money, but that's just another energy. Time is massive. And so if you can even like set aside this idea of a financial investment, because maybe you don't have that money yet. This is so interesting that we're talking about this. I haven't even talked to you about this, but I've been thinking about presenting at my family meeting every year. We have a family meeting, presenting kind of like what my business has done so far. I've never like done that before. And
I
one thing,
actually saw this funny reel on Instagram where um, it showed all the adults doing a PowerPoint presentation of what they do for their job,
oh, hilarious.
because a lot of times you don't really know what people do for their
Yes.
job. So
Yes.
I think you should do
We
that.
should totally do that.
I love that.
I don't think there's time for a PowerPoint,
No.
but the whole point of it is because, and I promise I'll bring it back around, is that I did not have money to invest in my business for a very long time, at least not a large chunk. So there was just like $100 here and there. $100 was massive for me back then. Like $100 to help me create my website was so big, and it was always from my nursing money. It was never from Jeff's income. But what I did have is time and energy to a degree. Like, I knew that if I could sacrifice watching my favorite show or whatever it was, that was the biggest investment. And it continued to be for many, many years, because what happened is it paid off in terms of money. And then this is why I'm bringing full circle about the PowerPoint of like my business, because the best investments I have ever made have been back into my business. And because I'm a huge extension of my business, because of what I've been through my whole life, literally is my business, that includes investing in me. So I'll never forget these huge drops of like yoga teacher training. That was a huge investment. Doing things for hypnotherapy was a huge investment. Time was huge investment. Like, um, Jeff was always like, "What are you doing on the computer?" Like, literally reading for hours HTML codes because I didn't have the money. And I think it's a little unique, but because we decided to not have debt, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, but that's just how we did it for our business. I was indebted to time. And so because it took us longer, because we didn't have debt, it took us longer, is what I'm saying. But eventually it paid off. And now we've always been a debt-free company. And instead of using all this money that we've invested in to buy bigger homes, or which is still a great investment, but we've decided instead to invest back into companies and create more companies from cash, which has been such a blessing. And it hasn't happened overnight for me. I think it happened much slower than maybe some influencers that go viral and have all these things. And I know that there's facades with like things and whatever, but for me, it has paid off over and over. So if you can invest time and be patient, that consistency will pay off always.
Yeah, love it. It's interesting because I think most businesses, the way that they function is they will go out and they'll raise money, they'll raise capital, they'll get investors. So then they'll
Mm-hmm.
be like, okay, I need 500,000 or I need 1,000,000
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. But then you're indebted to those investors to pay that back. And one thing that I love about the way that we've done it is we've never had investors and we've
Mm-hmm.
never been indebted to anyone. And yes, it is a slower process, but I feel like it works, and both ways can work.
Yeah.
You can go out and go get
There's
a
risk either
loan.
way.
You can raise capital,
Yeah.
and then you can probably like just crush it and do amazing. So if you have that idea and you have that the means and the ability to get investments, then get that
Yeah.
get that from investors to then take your idea and really run with it. Um all right. So my answer to the question, biggest investment, initially, the first thing that came to my mind, so I'm going to kind of give two answers.
Okay.
First one will be quick. The first one that came to my mind was the very first laptop that we purchased. It was when we were living in Rigby, Idaho, and we were paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I was Dave Ramsey through and
Yeah. We
through.
had
Like
cash in different envelopes.
yes, it was tight.
It
Money
was really
was
tight.
super tight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember we bought a MacBook laptop and it was like $1,300. And it was the biggest purchase at that time for us. It was massive. But I feel like that was the start of it.
Do you remember what inspired us to get that? I mean, it was you. You, at that time, especially, you were like really adamant about running our finances. But do you remember what inspired you?
You just needed good equipment to be able to run your blog and your website and to edit photos and all the things. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of the start of it. But
That
I
was
would,
back. That was back with like PicMonkey when I would like, oh, the worst. I know that some people don't think that this is the right thing to do, but I have so many Instagram posts still. So if you scroll back enough, you'll see my awfully edited, filtered, nasty ass photos. But thank you, MacBook, for being able to give me that because it's all steps and stages. Keep going.
I would say our biggest investment was the decision to move and leave Idaho and move to Utah.
Love.
I would look at that as an investment.
Yeah.
It was when you look at the word investment, it's like the way I wanted to define it in this sense of this conversation is what am I willing to give of me to give to something else to then receive something in
Yep.
return?
Yep.
And so when we were living in Idaho, I was really frustrated with my job. Finances were really tight for us, and we were just really stuck. We were really just, it just
Not going
wasn't,
anywhere.
yeah, I could just see that my job just wasn't going to go much further, and that we both wanted more. We wanted to keep climbing that ladder of opportunity. And at that time, moving felt like the best decision. And the moving was instigated solely off the fact that I got a job offer down in Salt Lake. And so we did it. I think of back now, I'm like, I can't believe like we did that because I'm very much a nervous person to make big decisions, but all of that just felt so right,
You're not
so
huge on
correct.
change.
Yeah, I'm not huge on change. But every time we've moved houses, they've always felt so correct, so exciting, so aligned. And so with that, we moved to Utah. And I feel like there was just the snowball effect of so many other things that just like so much growth of things that took place.
Yeah.
So with that, I got my new job and I felt like I was just climbing that ladder so fast. I was so happy at the job. I was getting raises. I was progressing. And then in the meantime, you were here, you did your yoga teacher training, you were getting invites to do events and photo shoots. And so that investment of relocating and moving here then gave that return to where your
Yeah.
business then was able to really flourish and grow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in a practical sense, as far as to answer this question, like, because I'm sure that the person asking this question has a business, is happy with their home, like they're just looking like, what can I invest in that can help? My answer would be training.
Yeah.
If you can take a course, if you can take a class, if you
Yeah.
can educate yourself, then you're going to then be able to take that education and then run with it and create something with it.
Right.
Same thing like with you, like you did your yoga teacher training and it just opened up so many different avenues and doors. And it still is something that plays a vital role in your business still to this day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm literally running the yoga at Medicina because I love it so much.
Yeah.
And I teach women how to now somatically hold space for people and bring the somatics in because it's such a huge piece. Um, I mean, it's investing in yourself. Like I think about even Sacred Rebels and how literally invest in yourself for a year. Really say yes to yourself. And the return of investment is guess what? You get to start charging people and literally helping other people. Like, who can say that? And in ways of doing it on the internet, online, virtually, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And be patient with your investment because some investments take
Take
time.
time.
They take time to be able to see the return, as well as that time isn't going to be like, okay, if I invest now, I will get double my money back in 6 months. No, it's going to be over the course of maybe a year or two that
Yeah,
you're going to see double,
it could be
triple,
for sure.
quadruple. Like it just all depends on what you're investing in. So if you invest in Sacred Rebels, like Sadie said, and you spend that full year really investing in yourself, well, what's going to happen is after that full year of being in the course, the next year, next 5 years, 10 years,
Yeah, it just builds.
it just is going to build from there
Yep.
and double itself
I
over
mean,
and
and
over
we've
and
seen
over.
that. It's so fun that this year, I feel, especially year of the dragon, it's like there's so much that is crystallizing this year. And for those who don't understand that term, it's literally like things are coming to fruition. Like our tree is not just growing, but it's blooming. And it's like the apples are here. We're picking them and we're chewing them and we're eating them and they're delicious. And we planted that seed. I planted that seed in 2008. And like I said, this has been a slow and steady journey. And that's why I created Sacred Rebels, because I don't think it has to take that long. Like now I can create and like pull all these pieces of medicine together to help you so it doesn't take you that long. But also, it's been all a part of the journey and our income has just continued to increase. And I'm just so grateful for it. Did we already answer this one? What's the secret to life?
No, not that I remember.
What's the secret to life, Jeff?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. No, I'm kidding. I think everyone's secret's going to be a little bit different. For me, it's being able to have play and fun. Um, I love hobbies. I love activities. I love including our kids in those now that they're getting older. I love being able to share that with them. But with that, it's also just being able to just enjoy the now. Um,
Yeah, you're
I,
so good at that.
I'm definitely not the best when it comes to enjoying, let's say, housework and that type of stuff.
Yeah, you'd rather just play.
I would rather just do hobbies all day long. Like I would,
What a life,
I
Jeff
know,
Saban.
but I definitely am working on it of just being able to just be present. But
Find the balance of it all.
yeah, and I think that the trick to that for me that I'm having to continue to remind myself is just be present. So the secret to life would just be present. Because the thing about hobbies for me is most of my hobbies, they force me to be completely present.
Yeah.
And that's usually like when you talk to people who do action sports, when you're doing something that's like a thrill or a rush or exciting, you can't think of anything else other than right then, right now. So it just brings you super present. And so if you think about all the times that you've been like the most happy, it's the times that you've been the most present.
Yeah.
And so I think I've talked about this before, but like even when you do the dishes, think about the temperature of the water, the smell of the soap, the feel of the, I don't know, the
All the senses
whatever,
around
all the
you.
senses, the
It's like
smells,
romanticizing
this,
your life.
yeah, the sounds, the music that you're playing, like set the tone for your space to where you can just be present.
Yeah.
A lot of the times that I get agitated and I'm not happy is when, let's say, I maybe present with something, but then someone else is pulling me from my present moment, as in like a kid saying, Dad, like pay attention to me, or I need your help, or something like that. It's hard for me because I'm very one track minded, where
You're
I'm
just a
very,
manifester.
yeah, I'm very focused on this one thing and very present with that one thing. And I'm happy in that moment. And then to then be pulled and forced and sucked away from it,
So what happens
that
when that
causes
happens?
agitation.
What happens when that happens? Because you've been working on it a lot, like the last couple years, especially.
Yeah, I tend to get agitated, but then I also have to remind myself to just kind of be more flowy, more feminine, more open,
Yeah.
and just okay with the constant ebbs and flows and changes.
Yeah. Where does growth come into that?
That's a tricky question.
Like you said that your secret to life is having fun, but is in the fun, have you been able to challenge yourself and grow and become your best self? Is that a piece of it?
Like you're saying, like in the things that I do, am I growing and changing?
Yeah, like do you feel like literally the point of life, the secret to life is just like, oh, we're going to just have fun and in the fun like we just like learn and grow?
Oh, I mean, I see where you're getting at. Um,
I'm being rude on it. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm kind of a little bit poking the bear, but just from like a Capricorn perspective because I agree with you and also
No, I agree. Because, like, if you were to, let's say, go mountain biking every single day, eventually, and that's like,
it's
let's
just
say,
not the
your
real world.
hobby of choice, and that's where you find your happiness, you're going to get, it's going to get old after a while and you're going to get burnt out. And so I
And
get
also you have
that.
to
But
make
you,
money.
yeah, you definitely need things that bring purpose, that bring drive within you to where you feel happy and satisfied with the things that you're doing. So yeah, there's also the level of finding your purpose.
Mm,
So
that's the secret to life too.
there's lots of secrets to life.
Having fun and finding your purpose.
Yeah, just being, I think the biggest thing is just being present.
Love. Have you found your purpose?
No, I'm kidding. Sort of. It's still a constant discovery.
What's a piece of it? You're too
Uh
hard on yourself, I think.
I think right now my biggest thing is with my purpose is continuing to find my place within the business,
Mm-hmm.
within my passion with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, I have different moments where I go through these ebbs and flows of where I feel like I don't have a purpose or I'm not really contributing to anything substantial, and everything is just kind of lots of little things throughout the day or throughout the week and the month, and it's not like a substantial project or a substantial thing that I'm focusing all my efforts on, because a lot of the things that I do is many multiple things, whether it's taking care of the kids or the house or the yards or answering a few emails or tweaking a few things on the back end here and there. But for me, it's definitely this aspect of being able to appreciate something that I have created that's big and large. And I feel that I'm kind of missing out on that feeling, because I
Mm,
came from the construction industry where I was part of like a big project.
yeah.
And through that big project, we would have big, like maybe milestones or accomplishments through it. And I was leading groups and teams and people in meetings and stuff. And so I had this sense of accomplishment where I was the one in control of that. And now I don't really feel that I have that.
Mm,
Now I'm not saying that as if I miss my job and want to go back into construction, but now it's being able to identify of okay, right now, is there a project or a thing that I want to create, or can I um, continue my efforts of focusing more on the business and focusing more of my time and energy there?
The bigness is an interesting part. Well, I have so much to say about this, but the bigness is interesting because, I mean, just for context, Jeff has been on this journey now that he's left his job of finding his purpose. But what's interesting as the projector is it's right in front of his face. He's just so hard on himself about the bigness around it. So he has, he does one-on-one with men. He does breath work with men. He's been involved in men's circles. And also he is so intricate. You're so intricate in the inner workings. I mean, we run Medicina together and we've ran retreats together, and even watching you like help coach at our CrossFit classes in the morning, like I think a lot of your purpose, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of your purpose is helping others.
Yeah.
And so I wonder when that's going to click, and when you're not going to be so hard on yourself and realize that.
Yeah, there's different times when I feel like I'm kind of like finding it. Like doing some of the men's circle stuff, like sometimes I question whether or not that's something that really calls to me or fits to me or
Yeah.
that I want to do. But then this last few weeks I've been coaching Baylor's rec baseball team, and I shockingly actually really love it. I
Yeah.
love helping those little boys.
Yeah.
And to the point where I'm like, man, do we need to create our own comp baseball team for this area? And I can bring in a bunch of the local boys and create this team and work with them. Because even going back to like the CrossFit thing, always loved coaching in a CrossFit gym. Now I'm not level 1 certified and I've never actually coached, but there's different moments throughout my time in a CrossFit gym where maybe the coach showed up because there was like he slept in or something, and I ran the whole class and I loved it.
Yeah.
Or then I'll coach people on movements and things, and I love that stuff. And so for me, it's just finding like what the little things within myself that really light me up.
Yeah.
Because even though, like, let's say I enjoy helping people, for me, it doesn't necessarily translate across the whole board of the category of helping people.
Yeah.
And so it's just finding different things that really light me up and excite me.
Well, and that's why you are so good at doing the back end of SSJ, because it really lights you up. Like different things, like you're working on ads and um what did you do recently that you were like so good at? The point of all this is this. It doesn't have to be my purpose is blah 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 blah. It can be, and it has to be labeled. Like we limit ourselves so much on labels. I think that your purpose can be what lights you up, and it can ebb and flow, and you can give yourself grace in that. And that's why when I ask you, like, have you found your purpose? And you always say no, I'm like, babe, you're living it.
Yeah. It is one thing that's coming to my mind right now is I was journaling recently of it was along the lines of what do I want to like kind of accomplish in relation to purpose. And there's aspects of where I see people who are successful, who like stand out. Maybe let's say people that have like, I don't know, that everyone looks up to and has speaking gigs, and or where they have accomplished this big thing. And I think and tell to myself, oh, I wish I was like that. But then I also look at the things that hold me back and that I'm afraid of. And it's the things that those people are doing where they're like putting themselves out there, they're being outspoken. And so I find it funny that the thing that I want, I'm also resistant to doing the things to get to that point.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my piece of like finding my purpose and my entrepreneurial journey, you know this, but I'm built differently than you. And you have strengths that I don't have, and I have strengths that you don't have. And one of those is just the tenacity to do things that are not comfortable. And we've talked about that, like how I'm comfortable with discomfort and you don't like it. Would you agree?
mm-hmm,
Yeah, so it's interesting because a lot of the pieces of where I've gotten to find my purpose have been through searching through discomfort, really getting to things like, I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it because I know it's going to help me reach more women to help themselves.
And I'm definitely the type that I'm, for the most part, okay with just being comfortable, just doing the same thing over and over. And this last 2 years of working together and quitting my job has definitely taught me a lot and pushed me into different elements of discomfort,
Yeah.
of being able to find where I fit within even the walls of our home during the day, or fit within the business and fit
Or
within the
me,
world.
or me like letting you do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think a big piece of maybe why this is all coming through today is like, we don't all have to be psychopaths searching for the next thing. Like, I actually, it's interesting because it kind of comes back to the definition of contentment, being content. Jeff wants contentment. And initially, when we talked about this, it was like the beginning of our plant medicine journey when we really talked about what we wanted in our marriage. I didn't like the definition of contentment because that means not growing. And a lot of ways, Jeff anchors me because what's the point of all of this? Well, for me, my answer to the secret of life, it goes into this. Um, well, there's a few answers, but one of them would be to grow, to learn, to expand, to understand, and all those things. But you can get lost in that too, and then it's like, what is the point of doing all of it? And I've had some really beautiful moments last couple of years, and you've taught me this too of what is wealth? Like, are we really just trying to hit a benchmark number every single year? Or are we wanting to just like savor in what we've grown and be present and have a garden and have slow mornings? So I'm not trying to like give you shit and like get you to like find your purpose, but I do think that you're
Well,
too
no,
hard
I'm
on
glad that you
yourself.
brought it up because it's actually been on my mind recently. And one thing I wanted to add was I see you creating all of these things, creating these containers, creating these courses, creating these, like I was talking about earlier, like these big things that are financial means of income. And I don't see myself creating or even necessarily even having the ideas to create anything. And so then I just kind of feel like I'm just this, I don't know, this bump on the log, just serving my little purpose.
Not at
And
all.
so I wish that I had the creativity that you do to be
Mm,
able to create something and do something that
mm,
can be substantial and large, to be able to lift the load off of your shoulders of
mm.
being able to carry basically our entire family. Now, I know that you always say none of this would be possible without me, and I
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
appreciate
say.
that. And I know that, but also it'd be nice for me, I feel like, to be able to say, hey, I have this idea to sell this thing,
Yeah,
and this is my vision.
yeah,
But maybe that's just not me right now. Maybe that'll happen later on down the road. But
yeah.
right now I do feel I just need to continue supporting you and supporting your vision, and to be able to make your path as easy as possible when you've got
Mm,
your ideas and these visions and these retreats and these courses, to be able to help just support
hmm.
that.
Well, none of it would be possible without you. I'm going to say that because it's so important to note that I was actually thinking about this. I don't remember specifically what it was that I was, maybe it was a dream, but I was noticing something that you were doing and I thought it was so cool that it was you that was doing it. I think maybe the support emails. And a lot of it I have done everything. I've hired salary workers, I've hired, and we have employees and they're amazing. But I remember specifically learning from multiple people who run companies like don't work with your spouse, or they want to run their own thing, or there's many people that are in this industry that the husband and the wife are both doing things, and that's wonderful. But like you said, I've actually tried to. There have been moments when it's hard for me to let you just be a manifester as a projector because I see your purpose. I literally can see it. Like that's just a gift of mine. I think it's because I'm so open in human design. It's not
What would
even.
you say my purpose
Your
is?
purpose is to help people find their medicine. Your purpose is to help people find presence and enjoyment in life. Like you have such a sweetness. You have such a sweetness for life, enjoying life, like you said, romanticizing life, finding hobbies, getting to know the essence of that. you've never been one to struggle with anxiety or depression. And I think it's because you literally just live very deeply in the present. You just have always been that way. You have a very neutral way about you of like just allowing things to just flow. And I think that that's an extremely potent medicine. I've seen it with the women that are in my containers that connect with you. I've seen it in the women with the men that are at our retreats. I've seen it with the ceremonies you've held in the space that you've held. Um, but I also don't push you to go any further than you can, because as an emotional authority, you have to find that on your own. And so it's been interesting because we are also, so we're doing it very different than I think maybe anybody is. But I love that we're like this husband and wife team. And you know that if you need support stuff, if it's not for underwear and there's staff involved, it's you, right? Like there's somebody behind the scenes. And it's incredible how you can sit down at a computer and just organize all these emails to Zaps, to this landing page, to this cart, to all these things. And it would take me hours. That's not my zone of genius. And so your purpose is directly related to mine, but it's not necessarily just mine. Now that you've left your corporate job, it is molded into all of us. SSJ is literally just a name. It would not be possible without you. And that this has gone on such a tangent, but
No, I love it.
I think it's really important to note that a purpose doesn't have to mean that you are Tony Robbins. A purpose literally means like, are you having fulfillment in your life? Are you caring for your children? Like that's another piece that's super important for us to note is ours is so unique because we have 3 very young kids. Like he is a baseball coach. That is stunning. Like in a lot of ways, he's able to show up in other ways in our life that it's just really difficult for me too. It is I wouldn't say it's easy for me to make money, but it is easy for me to create really, I mean, I would say that it is easy for me to
It's
make
easy
money.
for you to create ideas that are streams of
Revenue.
income.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, that's not easy for me,
Yeah.
but it's easy for me to, uh, I don't know, teach Reagan how to do
You
motocross
know
and
what's not
teach
easy for
Baylor how
me?
to ride horses
Totally.
and
What's
to
not
load them up and take them to go do the
Yes.
things.
And what's not easy for me is signing up my kids for baseball. That does not feel easy to me. Or signing them up for appointments. I will love my kids till the day I die. I will sit there. I will make ground turkey and really simple meals, and I will try really hard to show up for them, but there's so many different places in parenting that I am not good at that Jeff is. And thank God we're at a point in our marriage where he's home now so that we can both like settle our nervous systems to do both. And it's required because now I'm not on Adderall. Now I'm not on energy drinks. Like I cannot juggle what I used to juggle. And thankfully we've been able to just find our rhythm in our life now for what it works for us. But I I would also love nothing more than if you were to come to me one day, I mean, and be like, "Oh my gosh, I have this idea." And if that never happens, that's okay too.
This is really helpful for me because I do feel like feel that pressure to do something to that effect.
And that pressure's not coming from anybody but me.
But
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 sorry,
it's coming from myself.
and that pressure's not coming from anybody but you. But I will
Yes.
also mention this is really interesting as far as a human design perspective. I never ever pressure him unless it's like, we need to do this for this. Like we've committed to people, like, I need you to make sure this is running. Obviously, right? There's like systems that have to happen. But me being a defined ego center and he is completely open in his ego, he's going to feel pressure whether or not I like it or not. It's just the pressure to prove himself over and over and over. And I actually think that's why you've resisted finding like maybe a purpose, because you feel like you have pressure in all these other areas. You don't have space for it. So we're like the best for each other and the worst for each other is what I'm saying. But also in that, and I also will say as a disclaimer, we've talked about this so many times before. However, things don't land with Jeff until they actually land, because as an emotional manifester, first of all, he has to ride his waves sometimes for years. And he won't let something penetrate his aura unless he's ready to hear it as a manifester. And so maybe this is why we had to do this podcast like that is. And it's actually super vulnerable and intimate. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to keep these pieces in, because in a lot of ways, I feel worried that people will think that I'm pushing you to do things, which is not the case.
No, it's definitely something that again, I feel it's interesting that we're talking about this, because this is something that I feel like now that we finished up the bathroom remodel. So to preface, I spent since last September basically day in, day out remodeling our bathrooms,
Yeah.
and I was so ready for that to be done. And that's where my purpose was for like the last 6 months. Now it's done. And now I'm kind of sitting in the space of, I don't know, kind of feeling like I needed to discover this like new sense of purpose or
Mm,
something. I think is
mm,
kind of the best way to describe
mm.
it. But I
Well,
loved this conversation.
it's just so interesting too, because it's all about intention. It goes back to like what I wish people would understand, right? Because you do go, 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 go. And I don't think it's necessary. And I tell him this too. And obviously you guys can take this conversation as a reflection of your relationships or where you're at or your purpose. But he, I feel like, is finding that there's things that aren't coming or clicking, or he's confused about things because he's not slowing down, because you're not slowing down, because you're not saying, what's next for me, and instead you're like filling it up with things that other people could do, rather than being like, okay, what's next for me? I'm going to sit in it, I'm going to be slow about it and be there, because I can see.
I'm trying to do that
I know
now.
you are slowing down. When did you slow down exactly?
I said I'm trying.
Okay. I'm like, I don't know if you actually are, but okay, I support you. For me, the secret to life, we need to move on, but it's actually not that serious, literally. Obviously, growth, I already talked about that. I think purpose for me is growing, but not in a sense of where I'm like obsessed with learning. It's more obsessed with finding who I am, like uncovering and deconditioning everything that has been taught to me so that I can come back to myself. And in that same breath, realizing that it's not that serious. Like, why are we taking things so seriously? I know that there are such dark things that are happening right now. And I know that it feels so serious, but really, like, it's all they're using all of that fear against us. And if we can just remind ourselves that there's so much peace and joy and happiness within the polarity, we can really literally change that within us. Okay. The next one is, let's see, where do I go here? Can you tell us your journey with channeling, how you learned or received this gift? Jeff, do you channel?
No.
You could. You have the ability to.
Okay, so what does it mean to
But
channel?
tell me why you don't channel.
Well, what's the definition of
For me,
channeling?
channeling is literally just being open to receive inspiration, being open to receive downloads. Downloads meaning literally like you close your eyes and you're like, oh, I thought of something, rather than just like realizing that it's from your own mind. It could be from like your higher self. It could be from God. It could be from your angels and guides, literally channeling. And depending on where your centers are open in human design, that's where you can feel the channeling more. So whether it's in your head or your emotion center, maybe emotion comes through. And then like with the emotion, you also hear a download or you hear something. And some people, it has to do with the clairs too, which means like some are clairvoyant, some are clairsentient. Some people literally see things, some people literally hear things. But in order for us to understand this gift of channeling, which I genuinely believe everyone has, we have to first, one, let go of control, and two, slow down enough to hear it.
I call it inspiration.
Love.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely different times or things where I just, you can call it a download. Like I get a download or an inspiration for a thing, like for something, and
Yeah.
then I just act on it.
Yeah. So I think there's just a little slight difference. Like the download is like, oh, it's like an aha, like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Channeling, when I usually channel, it's when I'm doing my Q&As for any of my containers. So any kind of live Q&A, when I do Q&As on Instagram, when I'm in Sacred Rebels, and I'm literally feeling their energy. So past Sadie used to prepare. Like maybe people would like bring their Q&As to me before, and then I would like think of the answer and I would like write it down. And what I was doing there is I was completely limiting myself to feeling the frequency of the person, because when someone asks me a question, they're going to answer it with their energy and I'm going to feel it. And then I'm going to be able to articulate it through my voice. So for me, because I'm so open in human design, and also I feel like I'm realizing that the openness was what I was feeling always throughout my life. I've always been extremely sensitive, very spiritual. The veil's always been very thin for me. I've been able to kind of feel in and out. So, in a lot of ways, I can hear a lot of things like mediumship, psychic readings, all those things. I just channel it in a different way of like, let me help you channel this question through helping you navigate what's your next step in your business. Where are you having a false belief? Like, what's the question of like what you're struggling with? Okay, let's get down to the bottom of that. Like, I can see where the false belief started. And so we can get them down to that like essence. And the most for me, it's a muscle for sure. It's like opening your third eye. It's decalcifying your pineal gland. So there's some 3D things that have to happen. And Jeff like laughs at me for these, but not drinking fluoride water. Stop drinking water out of your tap because it's literally poison, and it's calcifying your pineal gland. So really nourishing your body, grounding into the earth, being very adamant about being in your body, because if you can be in your body, then you can receive what's coming through you. And then the other thing is letting go of control, like really letting go of the idea of being prepared in the way that you thought you had to, where you're like reading books and all these things. I think I've talked about this. Have I shared the journey, the medicine moment when I was sitting with grandmother and I was like reading a book?
No.
This was really profound for me. This was a couple years ago when I really started to trust the channeling that I had, because it really does come online more the more you practice. And you can practice with like your sisters or kids or whatever. But there was this really profound moment when I was in medicine and I was trying to find the answer to something. And I am an avid learner and always a student. And I found myself teleported to this ginormous, massive room. It was super dark. The room was super dark. And there were just billions and billions of books around me. And I was right in the middle of the center of the room. And I had a book in my hand and my hair was long and it was in front of my face, like stringy, gross, creepy, ghost like girl looking down at this book. And my back was hunched over and I was just like completely ingrained in this education, or so I thought. I thought that the answer would be there. And when I'm realizing, I'm seeing this, I'm watching this coming, and from afar, my second self, whatever dimension I was in, and I told myself, sit up. And as I sat up in the middle of those books, my shoulders opened, my heart opened, my shoulders rolled back, my spine was straight. And we talk about this in Sacred Rebels, how our spine is literally the
Like an antenna.
signal. It's the antenna to not just our higher selves, but also to Mother Earth. So it anchors us because we are literally marrying heaven and earth within our bodies. That is who we are. We get to marry this incredibly substantial energy between us. That's like one of the beautiful essences of being human. And then a pillar came in this vision down from the heavens into my crown chakra. And all of a sudden I had this knowing. And what I realized in this moment is that I was disconnecting myself from channeling, disconnecting myself from source, because I was trying so hard to look at other places, read other books, listen to other things, rather than trusting that everything can be connected from my own source to God's source. And that changed everything. And that was like, okay, step one, straighten my spine. Step two, listen. And step three, trust.
Beautiful.
Do you have anything to say about that?
I think for me, the biggest thing for me when it comes to channeling and receiving inspiration is the times that I can slow down. And usually it's in times of when I'm meditating and journaling is when I'll receive like the most
Yes.
inspiration, because
Yes.
then that's when you can kind of clear the chatter in your mind.
Yep.
And sometimes I'll even have it like as I'm going to bed, because you've also slowed down, your body's slowing down and your mind's slowing down and you're starting to go to sleep. Which can be tricky for me, because then like something will come through and then my mind will then spin out of control for the next hour or so as
Yeah.
I'm trying to fall asleep. But yeah, I would say slowing down, which is obviously another thing that I'm trying to work on, because I very much am a busy person when it comes to getting tasks done and wanting to make sure that I'm always just being productive and always doing something. And so it is taking time to just slow down.
Yeah. I mean, you tie your worth a lot to things that you're doing, don't you?
Yes.
But we're working on it.
Yes.
Wow, this is like a roasting Jeff session. Just kidding. This is a bettering Jeff session. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to be the
I felt
case.
great.
Okay, great. Well, I love what you said because I think a lot of people don't connect to the channel within them because they don't know what's going to come through. And I saw that a lot when I did those free meditations during COVID. Like people were losing their minds because they were forced to sit with their own shit and they're like, what now? So I always like to call it like being a mind ninja. Like, of course, there's going to be thoughts that are not yours, especially if you have an open head center. So you just have to learn how to filter them and move through them and trust. Like, I had a moment this morning. I woke up at 3 a.m. and that happened to me as well. And you just have to learn tools to combat and come back to your center. This is so interesting because this next question, I did not make this up. It's literally around the same lines, but it's from a different person. But maybe we'll end with this one since we're already there for an hour. But she said, do your downloads ever shock you or are they more welcoming? Have you ever had a download that you're like, what?
No. And the reason why is I want to say that in one ceremony, there was a helper that said, grandmother won't show you anything that you can't handle, basically. And so I feel that our downloads, our channeling, our inspiration, whatever it is you want to call it, I feel like it's always something that you can handle in
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that.
yeah.
And it's, do you ever feel like you get it and it's a little like deja vu where you're like, oh, of course.
Yeah. I always get deja vus. Deja vus are when I know that I always say it's when I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Um, yeah, I don't think that, and this is something that maybe I'll need to like learn more on, but at least for me, and right now, what I believe is that if it feels not welcoming, like really shocking, it could just be like an intrusive thought. When I hear the word shocking, I think of like dark. Like if it's dark, I'm like, this is an intrusive thought, right?
Yeah, the question to me is also interesting because it's like, what about it would be shocking?
Totally.
Like, what download would you receive that would shock you?
I mean, I had a download when we were still in our like old marriage and in our old life where I felt so strangulated and felt so not myself and felt like I was literally faking who I was. And I literally heard, you are going to get cancer if you continue to live this life.
I have another one. And this was one thing that I fought for. Well, I'll just put it this way. Let's say that you've been told to believe something your entire life, but deep down you, or even just you receive the downloads that you don't believe that thing that you've been taught your entire life. Like, let's just say, just to keep it easy, let's say that you have been told or you receive the download that drinking water out of the tap is not healthy for you, and that you should drink spring water or whatever, and that to you would be shocking. Like, that could be something that would be really difficult for you to process. Now, this can apply to a lot of different things in life, and this applied to me in my own life
Yeah.
where there were things that we were taught and told to believe and to stand by, but I kept receiving downloads basically telling me to not believe it, and it was very shocking to me, and it took a long time until finally those shocking moments became more familiar to where then I was then able to make the ultimate decision
Yeah.
to go forward.
Yeah.
So that to me could be a shocking download.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah. I love that. And I also want to mention that I think that we have complete sovereignty. And when we're asking questions, it opens us up to things that we're not able to actually understand from the physical form. So it brings every single aspect of ourselves, because I really feel like our soul is very fluid and in multiple dimensions and potentially living multiple lives. And when you ask a question to God and your higher self, it opens you up to this assistance and support where you're able to be like, oh, okay. And sometimes the answer isn't something that it could shock you, like you said. It could be like, oh, wow, that's really intense. But I'll be also take a big disclaimer as far as channeling for other people, making sure you have permission, making sure you're calling on support, only benevolent beings in this space. That's a whole nother topic, but I wanted to make sure I talked about that because I'm not channeling just like freeballing. Like if some people it's difficult, especially mediums or psychics, like people ask this, like you go to the grocery store and you can hear other people's thoughts or you can feel their energies. That's where it's your sovereignty and your chance and your choice to literally prepare yourself and shield yourself and also get out of other people's businesses. So it's super important to know. And also, like you said, like grandmother, I also feel that with God as well. Like you're not going to receive something that you're not ready for, even if it's super shocking, trust it. Because if there's one thing that I know, and I know that you know this too, Jeff, is like, what is even real? What is actually your belief? Nobody can tell you what to believe until you actually deconstruct that yourself and ask yourself specific things. What is it I believe? And I'm not even talking about in religion or out of religion or in spirituality in general. Like, what does that even mean? I hate New Age spirituality for this purpose because everybody's wanting to pocket it like a religion, which is so not true. Like, we still have to stand for what is right and wrong for us, for us. And although we want to go beyond this like dualistic universe, we are still human. And there is contrast, and it's important for us to trust that. And if you feel nervous or scared, just remember that you are channeling from an intent, from a beautiful space of love. And you can always shield yourself before and make sure that you only allow, what is for your highest good into this space. And it's not that you're opening up different portals or whatever it is, it's that you're literally allowing yourself to open yourself up to more expansion into your own answers. Um,
Trust yourself.
Trusting and then like making sure energetic hygiene is always there, clearing spaces, opening the windows when you're clearing spaces, calling upon your angels at night. Like for me, it feels more scary to completely shut myself off because I did that for 30 plus years, completely shut myself off to spirit, to knowing. And I allowed myself to listen to other people's truths and claim them as my own. And until I allowed myself to lift my chest and open myself to higher self downloads, that was when I finally said, that was when it finally clicked, where I was like, actually, this is what I believe.
Love it. It was the same for me, where once I started like really tapping into my spirit and my, I guess, yeah, just my spirit, myself, like that's when a lot of inspiration and a lot of changes were coming through. And
I mean,
then I still go back to the question of like shocking. And I will say, like, there were definitely moments where something would surprise me
yeah,
and something would kind of, yeah, just shock me. But
yeah,
I just knew that it was coming for me. But the hard part is through that process for myself, is I doubted it and questioned it for a long time because I was always told that these thoughts that go against this are not yours and they're of the devil and you shouldn't listen to those. And so sometimes those shocking ones, like, lean into them and really get curious, be like, is this something that I believe like deep down, and that I should follow this? Whereas some other times you're told, like, don't believe it, don't do it, like, stay away from it, run from it, that type of stuff.
yeah.
So
I
trust
love that.
yourself, get curious, and just pay attention to what comes through.
Yeah. Freedom of awareness of self, freedom of awareness of your truth is on the other side. And
Love it.
that can feel shocking and it also can feel so freeing.
Yeah.
And so I challenge all of you to find the wild intuition within you, the wild downloads and channeling, and open yourself up. And if you have questions about what you're wondering, or even if it's your purpose or your belief, or get really specific about your question, sit in meditation, open up yourself to spirit and the highest self and your highest good. Ask the specific question, then listen carefully, and do not second guess what you hear. Do not judge it. Just start writing it down. I mean, some of my most prophetic downloads have been because of that.
Same. I agree.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, Jeff.
I love you.
Super vulnerable. I love you so much.
I love you.
You're perfect in every way,
You are
just so
too.
you know. Thanks for joining us. And I hope that you find a little wild intuition this week, and we'll see you next week. You are never too much and always enough. Love you so much.